Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 198 of Salvaggio and Cratty. Here for you again on another Wednesday night, 7:01 p.m. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Podchaser, YouTube, and Twitch. And the Boston Celtics are NBA champions. Everybody wanted Boston. They got Boston.
Idiots.
Sounds corny at this point, but idiots, have to let them know. What a season, what a series, what a team. We'll get into that first tonight. The parade is Friday. Al Horford will be serving Raising Cane's on Boylston Street tomorrow afternoon at 1.
What?
Yeah, like all the teams do, like Jack Eichel after like the Golden Knights serve Raising Cane's. Everybody has like one player from like a Super Bowl team or whatever serve food and like hang out with fans. It's Al Horford this year,
Didn't know
who
that.
will be coming back, which is great. Spoiler for something we're going to talk about at some point, but I know how you feel, Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to ask how you're doing besides your golf-induced headache.
Yeah.
Um,
Not a big
sun-induced
Sun
headache.
guy.
The
Yeah.
sun, the sun beats everybody at
Sun
some point.
remains undefeated.
So yeah, how are we feeling? You got your champions hat on. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to wear my championship T-shirt, but it's hot as fuck in my apartment, and I don't have AC in my kitchen slash living room, so I don't want to just like cake that thing in sweat right now. So
Smart.
that's where I'm at.
Smart.
How are you?
Fantastic. Absolutely fucking fantastic. I don't know if it was you I texted or somebody else. The night the Celtics pulled off the game 5 victory. This is the most, and I think this has been years in the making, obviously, and a lot of people have talked about this. It's kind of been the theme with the Celtics team of, getting over the hump and finally kind of exercising these demons, year after year of heartbreak, stuff like that. So maybe that's why this feels as sweet as it does for me and myself, yourself, and I feel like a lot of Celtics fans as well. And I feel like a lot of Celtics fans probably share this. For me, I said it Monday night. This is a championship that I have not wanted as badly as I have ever wanted a championship, probably since that 18 Red Sox team. And I feel like they're two similar teams, and that, as we know, that Red Sox team just dominated everybody that year. So it's kind of in the same boat as the Celtics, as you said. What a year, what a team. It was only fitting that they finished this off in such dominant fashion to see them, and we obviously no, we didn't think they were going to fall short. We knew this was going to be the year. Pretty quick into these playoffs, it seemed like they had something special, just the season as a whole. And that's why it was so sweet as well. It's just the straight up domination that this team has shown right from day one, right from the get go. The buy in, the lock in, the coming together as we've seen this team do over the season and these playoffs, especially, that they continue to remind us of, which has been good to see. All that coming together in a dominant, and I'll get into it in a second with instead of recapping the games, I thought we'd just kind of give our thoughts on the series, the
Yeah,
finals, and anything that stood out. That was my big takeaway. Just the straight up domination that you saw from multiple guys. Kind of, again, that the team coming together as a whole to accomplish this goal was great to
right.
see. And I don't know how you couldn't. People still do. I feel like riding the high of Monday night, for sure, and I will be for quite some time. It feels like, but it was great to watch how it unfolded. You got a little bit of everything.
Yep, and they sealed the fact that they have one more games in the playoffs this year than the Pistons and the Wizards did in the World Series. You got me thinking
I
baseball
did.
now.
Yeah, I
Regular
messed you up
season.
there. Hmm.
That's a tough one though, either way.
That's not that. Like, I
Damn.
saw that stat
But
earlier, and I was like, "That's not that
it's
surprise."
just funny.
It is
Yeah.
funny, but I'm like, when I read that,
Yeah.
I'm like, "That's not a surprising stat." Like, we knew
But
that you were
like
gonna have to win a lot of games, and those two teams suck. So
I think the ultimate culmination of this epic season, where we're at with it now, into the off season and celebration period, it shows that as frustrating as losing and coming up short, and sometimes teams choke, um, as frustrating as it can be in the moment when you have reason for hope, unless you're an idiot who hates them, like some people do, like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
mhm.
Um, there was always that bit of hope that they were going to eventually get there, and there was a scenario where they just weren't built for it. Something would happen. Maybe Jaylen Brown was traded. I
Mhm.
said back when the Jaylen Brown James Harden rumor started, I'd probably stop rooting for the Celtics. They made that trade. They certainly would not have made it to the NBA Finals, or maybe even got out of the first round. Think about the alternate history that can happen there.
Mhm.
The Celtics proved that these things take time. You're
Absolutely.
not
Yep.
always going to win with the super team. You could call the Celtics in a super team, but I don't think they are. in the conventional sense of like LeBron's Cavs team. You could call the Heat a little bit as well, I guess. And the Warriors, of course. But the Warriors, on top of just being stacked, were truly outstanding too. The 73-9 season, that's just, an outlier. That just puts them in a whole different echelon. It takes time. And, at this point, the time might have been extra worth it because you're in a position where you can bring a huge chunk, if not all of this group, besides like a couple ancillary pieces back and win another one next year, potentially 3 and like 4 if you keep this core together and they're performing well. Because this is what Danny Ainge / Brad Stevens set out to build. Danny Ainge did things a lot differently. Brad Stevens kind of expedited things and did things in a different style. And shout out to him for that. I think he's the best executive in sports. I do. I really do. I mean, he's a mastermind.
I don't know how you could argue against it this past year. I mean, it's again to go back to that Red Sox team in 2018. We talked about it with Cora.
Even now,
like everything the guy touches turns to gold. It seems like so.
You need to be patient in a situation like this. You're not always going to win with a super team. You're not always going to win right away, even with 2 studs. They could have won against the Warriors. They did it. It is what it is. Did they let that beat them down like crazy? No, like it wasn't. They didn't get the job done last year, but they get it done this year in epic fashion. The lock-in, like you said, was very apparent early on. You saw guys like even not only the guys, taking on bigger leadership roles with Marcus Smart out, like you saw them step up, delegate leadership, delegate, roles on the team. Not everybody, not Jason Tatum having to score the most every night. Drew bought in quick. You could tell he liked it here early. He signs an extension late in the regular season. Kristaps was right away like, I'm okay with being in a lower role. Like, I think this could work. I like the spot I'm in. We have a great group. They just said all the right things and did all the right things. And it was a tremendously enjoyable season to watch. It's one of the most enjoyable Boston sports teams of my lifetime. I think way up
Gotta
there.
Be up there. Yep.
And I've watched a lot of great Bruins teams, great Patriots teams, and great Red Sox teams. So that's saying a lot. And me, I haven't always been like the biggest basketball guy. But I've really come to love the sport again, and I love this team.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. That's kind of been the talking point for a lot of people over the last couple of days. Is the saying and doing, saying the right things and doing the right things. Like this team very easily, and I think this is maybe one of the things too that had given them the criticism going into the, before winning this season was okay. They always come up short, but they always do say like, oh, next year we got to be different. Next year we got to be better next year. It can segue us perfectly, I think, into Jaylen Brown, who was a guy, as we know, last year there were a ton of questions around him after the epically bad performance he has in that Eastern Conference Finals Game 7, but comes out and says like, this is going to fuel me. This one stings, so I'm going to use this to make myself better. And to some people, you could sit there and go, all right, like that the guy's going to say that in the moment because that's what professional athletes do. Then he gets the huge payday, and obviously now rightfully deserved payday with what he was able to do this season. And again, some people I'm sure were like, all right, the guy got his bag. Like, how many times do you see an athlete do that and then just kind of keep their play the same level, or maybe taper it, or more so than not, I feel like taper it off, because they do get the big payday. Brown elevated his game in more ways than one, became, again, we've talked about it when it happened, a complete snub when it comes to all NBA, all defense. Like the all defensive one is what pisses me off more than the all NBA.
It's apparent
and it seems
that
like
he
him
takes
too.
those things personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like he's a guy that backed up everything he said.
It's good when you channel it into something like he's done.
Exactly. That was the point that I was getting to, is that everything he said, he backed up this year and then some. Like, he had a career season, was great in the playoffs. And again, one of my big takeaways leading, to spoil it here, that's one of the things that I'm so grateful for him of, is that we talked about it when it happened, when they trade Smart, as you mentioned earlier. You want Tatum and Brown to take on that leadership role. And it seemed like Brown, and he even said it too, I think, in one of his interviews, that like he's been able to be more vocal this season, and be that leader that the team, maybe has lacked at times. To see him blossom into that, and then again, his play back it up more so in more ways than one. That was great to see. And that's one of the reasons too, why I was very happy that he won MVP. It was interesting at the end. Like, I thought Tatum, with his performance, dropping 31 points and having maybe his best game in the playoffs as a whole, thought maybe for a second he might snatch it away from Brown late. But the fact that, again, we talked about it when the series starts, what's someone else not named Jason Tatum going to have to do to win MVP? If it was Brown, it was going to have to be try to lock up Luka as best you could. And he did that. He was fantastic on both ends of the floor. And
So
again,
good.
rightfully deserved. And I have this in the notes too. Like, it's tough to, like, I want to say, like, I've never been more proud of for like a player, or like happy for a player of all the stuff that Jaylen Brown went through. But then you see the Al Horford stuff, you see the Jason Tatum stuff. So it's like, all right, like it all kind of molds together of like, you feel so good for these guys in a lot of different ways because of, the different stories and the different ways they've gotten to where they are.
Yeah, and I really want to, focus on Jaylen Brown too, because you know how I feel about Jaylen Brown. Anyone who listens knows. First off, I think a huge part of the reason was, he got the edge, even though Tatum played excellent. So did
Hmm.
Brown in the clincher. Was that Luka factor? Tatum
Absolutely, for sure,
had big
absolutely.
games, didn't always light up the score sheet with points, but I mean, early in the clincher, he had like somewhat early in the second quarter, I think he had 7 assists. Like,
Tatum,
come
yeah, he had
on,
7 in the
that's
first quarter.
that was
Like,
the first quarter. Okay, I
yeah,
didn't
he
know if
was
he
on
got
double
any of
double
those
watch
like
like
early
halfway through the
second
second
quarter.
quarter. Yeah.
Like, dude, it just goes back to the balance of this team. And something I want to highlight again too with like the contract. There was very much reason to be like, okay, this is kind of crazy for Jaylen Brown.
We talked
But
about it. We're like, after that
yeah,
performance, can you get like, we weren't looking to trade
yeah,
him, but we were both skeptical. Like, you kind of
yeah.
have to give him it because it's the player that he is. You can't really
And
find
you don't
someone
want
to
to lose
replace him.
him.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, all right,
But
there's gonna be questions.
there was also the aspect of like not everybody saw it this way, and that's totally fine.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yep.
but there was the aspect of like this type of deal for a player like Jaylen Brown for that much money was sort of new.
Hmm.
And there was reason to believe that, sure, maybe this isn't going to 100% age well every single game, but these are going to become more common, these types of deals, these big
Yep.
paydays for players that might end up being worse than Brown. So
Hmm.
it's going
Yeah,
to
for
age
sure.
well unless he sucks. And he has done the complete opposite of sucking. He has elevated his game, he has
Hmm.
elevated his leadership, his defense has become absolutely fucking
It's elite. He's
phenomenal.
one of the best two-way players in the NBA, and
He
that's
he he is
not
up
even up
there.
for
He is like a
debate.
top three best two-way player in the NBA, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think you could. I definitely have. Again, he has the merit now to back it up. If anyone wants to
He's
argue
got the
against it,
championship. Like,
yep.
he's got 2 MVPs along the way here. Like,
Hmm.
what more can you say about the guy? Like, it really has been spectacular to watch. Just the chemistry in this team, and it starts with those guys now. I'm sure trading Marcus Smart was tough for them, but it proved to be a necessary evil.
Hmm.
You have to make cutthroat decisions. You have to make ones that you feel for the best, and it got you Kristaps Porzingis. Sure, you won a lot of games in this playoffs without Kristaps Porzingis, but it's nice to have a 7'2" Latvian to lean on
Absolutely.
that can shoot threes,
He was a
can
huge
block
difference in game
threes,
one.
can block
Like,
shots without even jumping.
hmm.
Like that reach and that length and athleticism. He's not, athleticism might not be the best word for him. He's a great athlete for his size. Like, he's not the quickest guy, but like the reach, the shooting
Athleticism in a
ability.
different way. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a athleticism with some nuance, but I think people get what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
Having a guy that's 7'2" that can really play ball is an advantage. And that proved to be a difference maker. Um, Drew Holiday, despite the stinker in game 4, looks early on to be every bit worth the extension you gave him. Derek White will be next. We'll see. We'll never forget the Tillman minutes. Maybe Xavier Tillman will play a little bit of a bigger role next year.
Hmm.
But man, it's really hard not to feel optimistic. It's almost impossible for me. And what a series, what a way to clinch it, and to do it at home. That game 4 loss, that game 4 blowout is essentially meaningless
Yeah, I was gonna
now.
say, any thoughts of the game for? I mean, everyone I feel like right as that happened had the same. Like, I was texting you, I was texting another buddy of mine. We talked about this where, watching that game, I was like, all right, because we had seen it happen before. We talked about it on the show last week of like anytime the Mavericks, if they were ever able to get out to a big lead, like I said it, maybe I said it after the show or right at the end of it, where I was like 10 points if the Mavericks get that, like that's nothing to me because the Celtics should be able to erase that. And that obviously happened in game 4. You're sitting there, I'm watching, and I'm like, all right, the Celtics have to have a run in them. Like, they can't be this bad. Dallas, excuse me, is gonna, you know, get a little laxity as going to the defensive end. And as soon as Derek White, as I texted you, missed everything on a 3-pointer, which you'd never see him do, I was like, all right, like they clearly just don't want to be here tonight. They know, everyone
Right.
has kind of had the same mindset. Like, you're going
Yeah.
back to Boston anyway. Let's just win the thing in game 5 because we know we can just
Classic
stomp this
prank.
team. Yeah, exactly. We haven't had
At
one
the
of those in a
same
long time, it feels
Yeah.
like. A classic
At the
prank.
same time, like, I think the Celtics finished like 60-23 or something. The final record was like maybe 80-23,
It
I
was,
think it is.
yeah, 80, and I think 80 and
Yeah,
23 was what
like
it was.
this was such a, like this was such a staunch outlier in really the last 2 or 3 years of Celtics basketball, to the point where like, based on what we've seen recently, like I really didn't worry. Like this
Well,
was
what was
just it was a historically bad, snake bitten, worst offensive performance under Joe Mazzulla, and you
mhm,
knew it wasn't going to bleed because this team has proven you enough that it isn't going to. And
yeah.
that game was truly outstanding in the way the Celtics couldn't shoot. They couldn't shoot. They couldn't rebound. They turned the ball over a lot.
Well, I was like, you're doing
And
this on purpose. Like,
I was like, okay, this was me. I was at the watch party. I was fortunate enough to go with a friend and a friend of his. It was very fun.
mhm,
Um, this was how I saw it. Like, okay, the Mavs have blood in the water a little bit, but it doesn't matter. I'm giving them a little bit bigger of a shot to win in Game 5 on the road than I did going into Game 4. But like we talked about it, even this aged poorly. But like if they win Game 3, they're sweeping. That didn't happen.
mhm.
But in a similar vein, I'm like, okay, they lost Game 4. Like there's no fucking way they'll lose Game 5.
No,
Um,
no chance.
it just wasn't
Like,
happening. Throughout the series, just in general, any momentum the Mavericks really established, I really never got worried. And I would have got worried in Game 4, but like it kind of felt early on like that this was going to be a game of catch up,
mhm,
and they win or lose. I didn't expect them to lose by 40,
yeah,
but like at the end, like I didn't worry because I knew they were going to win Game
mhm.
5. Like
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like you could again, if there's
it was a
anybody
weird spot.
with how game 4 went down and how game 5 went down, if there was anybody out there, and I'm sure there's still people are that thought, Dallas had a chance in that series. Watching those last two games, if you don't now think that the Celtics, again, I am 100% on the belief of the Celtics would have rather won it at home in front of everybody. They knew they had the series in the bag. And again, everything that happened in the first couple games in Boston, same thing. Kyrie turns back into a pumpkin, can't do anything in the Garden. It's one of the
I
funniest things to see.
Nobody in my life uses pumpkin in the way you use it on the show every once in a
See,
while, and
I've
it
heard
always
it.
makes me stop and laugh.
Yeah, I heard it a couple of times, so I take it and run with it. But yeah, like he
That's
did
great.
nothing. He was not a threat in Boston at all. He had a decent game 5 compared to the first couple of games in the Garden. But other than that, like he was a no show. All their role players turned back into bums when they went back to I didn't want to say the
And
Garden again,
Ty
but
Anderson had the best tweet about him, like, oh, like maybe kind of like backtracking some Boston stuff going into Game 1. Then he's like,
mhm,
do your homework before you come here, like
yeah,
before you decide to come here for Game 4. And Ty was like, yeah, this is the experience, like this is what it is. Like
yeah, exactly,
Boston's a cult, like
yeah,
fucking loser.
but yeah, that's
Just like
ridiculous.
if his legacy as a basketball player needed any more cementing of just being a huge born loser, this was it.
Well, the
So
guy's
he
got a
delivered
ring, so
this.
you can't call him a loser on the level of like James Harden or that type
Yeah,
of like
but
Joel
come
Embiid
on.
type of loser, but loser in a different sense.
I think his antics kind of overpower it to an extent that
Hmm.
um for a guy with a ring, like more than anyone ever could get close. The James Harden thing is different because he just has a 1-1 and
True.
he sewers pretty much everywhere he goes now. Um, Kyrie at least has that ring, but man, has he really overridden it with a lot of this. Like I would venture to say a lot of basketball fans, the first thing they think about is Kyrie assholishness versus that
Blowing
ring.
up everywhere he goes. Yeah.
When everybody thinks the ring, they think of LeBron. Like they don't think of Kyrie first.
True, but I mean, Kyrie. If you ask
He
people,
was excellent on that team.
Kyrie hit the
Yeah,
shot in that game that got LeBron
but
his first ring.
I
So
think as time
or
has
they got
passed,
Cleveland. Yeah, Cleveland.
I think as time has passed, people think about Kyrie's antics more than the championship. I
Oh,
don't think that's too
I
crazy to
wouldn't
say.
disagree with that. So
Right.
then on that,
That's my
because
the genesis of my point.
yeah, I gotcha. So on that note, then, because we'll jump around the outline a little bit here, and that's no big deal. But that was one of the things. Game 5, obviously. What did you think of Kyrie's? I don't want to say antics, because I mean, I'm sure there was some merit behind him going up and dapping everybody up at the end of the games, congratulating people. Um, Funny enough, though, if you go back and watch that, because I did it the other day, I heard somebody mention it. He high fives pretty much everyone except Al Horford. So kind of interesting there. And I
I didn't even
said
notice
this,
that.
yeah, and I said this to somebody the other day too. I think I was talking to my dad about it. If you ever, we may have talked about this going into the finals, but a couple years back when he was at the free throw line, do you remember the people chanting the Kyrie sucks? And it was Tatum and Brown, or I think Tatum mainly was like quieting the crowd down, like don't be saying that to him. And then in the post game interviews, Tatum and Brown, kind of not got on Celtics fans, but we're like, that's something we really shouldn't be doing. Chanting the guy sucks. If you watch Al Horford, he did it a couple times in the finals. Whenever that started at the Garden, Horford kind of to the side was like, keep that coming. So those two guys,
Yeah,
I don't.
he also did it just I think it was random, like just like trying to pump the fans up on a free
Mhm.
throw once first.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Gafford. I don't think it was Luca or Kyrie.
There
Um
was there were a couple times where it was Kyrie specific though, and you could hear the Kyrie sucks chants and
Al
Horford.
was the
So those two
best
guys
because
do not like each other. But what do you think of
you
that
have
whole thing
surface
from
level.
Kyrie?
Right. You one quick thing. You have
Yeah.
surface
Yep.
level Al, but I think he kind of like picked up on those types of things, like kind of shit stirring a little bit this year, which I
hmm
love.
Yep.
The Kyrie Al stuff, like I
Or
don't
just the
know.
high five and stuff in general. Like, cause I took it
Yeah,
as like,
like
it's kind of forced. Like, you're doing that just to be seen of like, hey, I'm high fiving, congratulating these guys. I'm not as big as an a-hole as maybe people think
yeah.
I am, but I think it was
He
a
just like
little far-fetched.
he has become so twisted in his own mind that like he doesn't really know how to approach these things anymore. He's like,
It's a
sometimes I
fair way
want to
to
be
look
nice,
at it.
sometimes I want to be petty. Like
hmm I always want to like give those
you
little
haven't won a single
digs.
game at the Garden since you stomped on Lucky. So like,
It's like
I
one
don't
for his
know.
last 15 or whatever, just in
Maybe
general
you should
playing the
stomp on
Celtics. Yeah.
Lucky again to reverse the curse, man. I don't know.
Maybe
Like idiot.
see
Like
if it, yeah,
he
a
really
double
is the
jinx.
worst. Double jinx.
hmm
Derek White. We haven't really talked a ton about Derek White besides some rough shooting in game four. He had a couple big shots here. I think he had 3 or 4 threes in the clincher. Gets his face just smashed into
I
the
still have
court.
no idea how he didn't break his nose on this, let alone knock out like half of his teeth.
Like,
Like,
yeah, more should have happened there.
mhm.
And he has like the similar chipped tooth. It reminded me of when Pasternak had like almost an
Yeah, yep.
identical chipped tooth. I was like, he's got the pasta look. It was funny. It just made me think of the video a few games ago. I think it was after game one when Pasta was there and he like gave Derek White a knuckle touch during the media and like a slap on the ass as he walked by.
Mhm.
So imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. And maybe Derek White got his face smashed on purpose. That's
Yeah,
grit.
yeah,
He's an honorary
absolutely.
hockey player now.
hmm
Um, yeah, I mean, he set up for a big time extension.
Absolutely, and well deserved one too. Absolutely.
If they even need to, they're gonna find ways to make the money work. I don't know if they need to at this point, but I mean that's a no doubter. Like
hmm
that's just another one of Brad's masterful deals. And man, it's so crazy to talk about a team this deep.
That's what I mean.
It's
It's
just like
why like
it's the roster construction is really magnificent.
you feel bad leaving guys. Like there was, I think, one of the shows we did a while back after we got done with it. I was like, we didn't even talk about there was a big Drew Holiday player or something. So it's like the fact that you leave a guy off like that, and they said it on the Celtics post game too, of like just bringing up different guys to talk about. And every time they did, it's like, well, let's talk about Drew Holiday. And I can't remember who it was that was like the fact that we have this many superstar, all-star caliber players to talk about, and have had impact moments in these games and these series is just crazy. And that's like I said, kind of was one of my big things and thoughts as we'll jump into that and again jump around here. Like I thought Game 5 was the epitome of everything that this team has become, and the win first for the team and togetherness. Like you said, you have Derek White gets stomped on again, inadvertently, though we're not going to knock on Lively for doing that. He was going for the ball. But White chips his tooth, gets up, drills a massive three a couple plays later. Come to find out, he said it after the game. I don't know if you saw it. Did he look at the bench after he did it and was basically like, who needs that MF in tooth? So that's kind of crazy to see from Derek White. I sent you the tweet of him running up and down the media thing, just losing his mind, celebrating, which again, you don't usually see from Derek White because he's a pretty mild mannered guy. You have Drew Holiday get off to a great start offensively and then just lock up Kyrie the rest of the game. So him getting it done on both ends of the floor. Al was terrific in this game. I mean, a couple of big threes for him, had a bunch of huge defensive stops and rebounds. You mentioned it with Porzingis, didn't get a lot of playing time. We didn't expect that, but comes off the bench.
Overrode the medical team. What a legend
Pretty, yeah,
to play.
exactly. He was legitimately like trying to go out there, like he said, no, I'll die on this court before you don't have me play.
They gave him
Um,
the opportunity to die. Thank you.
yep.
It's not gonna be the storyline.
Mhm.
Um, like
But like he had his
that was
moments.
cool that they
Yeah,
did that.
had a big dunk that not really sealed the deal, but like that was a nice momentum play. Tatum, as we said, had his best game in the finals and maybe his, I don't want to say playoff career because he's had a couple of really good ones. Um, but this was a great game for him, like you said. Has a 7 assist first quarter. Second quarter he goes for 12 points. Didn't miss a shot. 4 of 4 from the field. Hits his only three of the game. Goes 3 of 3 at the line. fourth quarter, it looked like that was the cool thing to watch with Tatum too, because everyone, as we talked about before, has had the, oh, is Tatum is he the guy? Does he have that killer instinct? Watching him in that fourth quarter, and you could see it kind of building in him that like we're about to win a fucking NBA Finals. I'm about to be a champion. Like I'm putting this game away. Like that look on his face to see that was really cool. Because again, I think that's something we've wanted from Tatum in the past, and we've seen glimpses of it. Obviously, that big game against Philly a couple years ago, the 50-point game, closing out Milwaukee a couple years back. So there's been glimpses of that. But that was really good to see in the finals as well. Brown, as we talked about, hugely impressive performance all around from him. The stuff with, I don't know if you saw it today come out, or it might have been yesterday. The videos of him being like, if Luka's still in the game, keep me out there. I want to guard him and I want to, shut him down.
Yeah.
And then the stuff with Luka after the finals ended about, the respect and getting the best out of him. So that was cool to see. And then you have like the bench guys. Hauser played a fantastic NBA Finals on both ends of the floor after a pretty horrendous Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana. So that was good to see from Hauser.
Yeah, he was just like efficient.
Mm-hmm. And then Peyton Pritchard, like I said it the other night to somebody,
beater.
If you have a buzzer beater situation in the fourth quarter of games going into next season, like just put Pritchard on the floor at this point because the guy lives for just these circus shots. And the other thing I thought of too, it was kind of nice to see because obviously we remember those finals from a couple years ago against the Warriors. That was the Jordan Poole rule, or his couple of, or if you remember that, couple of buzzer beaters that he hit.
Yes.
Pritchard's a better player. Like I'm not going to say Pritchard's like stiff level of Jordan Poole, but that was to have that frustrating moment happen. To now have it kind of be on the opposite side and see Pritchard celebrate those was pretty cool to see as well.
Yeah, Pritchard, like, to follow up the half quarter from earlier. I'm drawing a blank which game.
Game one, I think, was the first one he hit, and then game obviously this last one.
$7 million, I think, a year. Like, it's just crazy. You have a guy like him that continues to get better. I was reminded today about the stat that everybody shit on Tatum for in the 2022 playoffs when he broke the record for 100 turnovers through the whole playoffs, and now look at him. Like, that's growth. It just goes back to the growth. Sometimes it takes time. It was all worth it. Like, I know Celtics fans, some more hardcore Celtics fans might feel a little different. I'm sure they feel it's worth it, but they probably felt these losses and these tough moments a little harder than I did. But excuse me, man, was it worth it? Really satisfying team to watch. Really satisfying run. I implore anybody who is still responding to the noise about Mickey Mouse run, didn't play anyone, this player was hurt, that player was hurt. They have so much depth. Tatum, had a great team around him. All that. I implore you people. I understand if it makes you upset. I really do. It doesn't make me upset at this point. The championship is won. Live with that. Enjoy that. Don't waste your energy because it is not worth it. Because a lot of these people are either stupid enough to keep going on with you and argue, or they are trolling you, and they will do it for their own entertainment or because they're bored or because they don't have friends or hobbies. Or maybe family that loves them. Maybe they're unloved. That's just how it is. That's a PSA for Twitter in general. Because hey, the
soapbox.
I've gotten in arguments before. I've done a much better job over the last 3 or 4 years. When I was younger, I would get in the mix a little more. The more I use social media, the more I just realize it's not worth it. It's just not, guys. Stand in your soapbox if you really feel compelled, but especially with this Mickey Mouse nonsense, the championship is won. It was different when they didn't. Just don't worry about it. Just enjoy it. It's not worth the mental strain. It's not worth the brain rot you'll get from these absolute fucking idiots on the internet. So I just wanted to, if anybody needed that reminder, a little PSA, a little internet safety warning for your brain and for your well-being and the use of your time.
Well, it's good that you bring that up because, like, I'm in the same boat as well. The one thing, like, I don't care if it's Celtics related or any team, I will never understand the argument of people being like, "Oh, the team's, it's such a deep team. Of course they won." Would you rather be the Dallas Mavericks? That's one guy, as we've talked about numerous times. Look how well having one guy be your entire team has worked out.
Whoa! Thumbs up! You got the thumbs up. Do you see the bubble?
Oh, how'd that? I saw that out of the corner of my eye. I don't know who. Somebody agreed.
I've seen that happen on Zoom before. It does the heart too. Will the heart get the heart emojis going?
Is that coming from the comments or just like a little glitch in the system?
No, it's
I
like
don't
a
know.
Zoom thing. Does it
Okay.
work with the heart? I've seen it do it with the heart too. Some people can do it with like the flames.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
they
mean
must
like
have.
I
Yeah, they
okay.
must have registered you doing the thumbs up.
Gotcha. Okay. I thought there was like a like in the comments. So now I'm not riding that as high as I was a couple seconds ago. But yeah, like I
Maybe it
never.
was from when Matt just said something in the chat. I doubt it was from him, but I think it's if you do the thumbs up, it picks up the thumbs up.
Oh, okay.
Matt said Laker fans especially are not one to talk. That's a good point too. The
Yeah. Yep.
Lakers, they can't say shit anymore.
No.
So I don't think they're winning one anytime soon. So
Oh, probably not, unless they do. Yeah, I'm not gonna say unless they build another super team or something like that, because there's too many guys in that team their age that. But yeah,
I think
like
that's gonna be hard to pull off.
for sure. But
But
back
they
on
are the
that, like
Lakers. There's the
yeah,
appeal of playing for the Lakers.
true. But back on that, like I said, like I will never understand the argument of well the team's too so deep. Of course they won, and then the people that are still trying to clown Tatum about all that. It is kind of funny to see like the parallels of the Garnett scream, the anything's possible to Tatum being like we did it or whatever it was,
Yeah,
and then
that was forced. That was
it was
forced.
the Kanye one was wild. Of the I guess we'll never know.
That one I didn't have a problem with. I didn't have
That's
a
my
problem with
point
any of
though.
them
Of like,
outright. That was
mhm,
he was just trying to be funny.
yeah.
I think the KG one was forced.
It was. I agree with you. I
The
said it in the
Steph
moment. I'm like,
one,
that's the new anything's possible. But
this is the Steph one. The Steph one is either like a playful jab at Steph when he said that after they beat the Celtics,
mhm.
or it's like, what are they gonna say now? We had so
I
many
think
people
it's
say
that.
shit the whole time. Like we didn't play anybody. We
Mhm.
played teams without their best player, like Mickey Mouse run, all that stuff. I think it was just a jab at that. But maybe it
Yes,
was,
absolutely.
somewhat copying Steph or fucking um, poking fun at Steph a little bit.
It also
But
fits
at
the
the same point, it
situation.
goes back to my point before. Who cares? Who
That
cares?
I
It's not
was,
worth
yeah.
arguing about that stuff.
My
Like
main
if you're on
argument
the
was
internet doing that,
was the
it's
same thing. I
not.
was going to agree with you, and that's why I said I'm glad you brought that up. But like on that side of it too, like again, for Steph, that fit. Like it's not like he again the people that are like, oh, you took it from Steph. In that moment, it made sense for Steph to do it because again, people thought the Warriors dynasty was over or the Warriors were dead.
Yeah.
They were never going to win another final. And then there was also the side of it of people arguing that he's never gonna can he lead a team because he never won Finals MVP? And we had that argument in that discussion before of how stupid that was that an all-time player and Steph Curry he had to prove himself by winning Finals MVP. It's the same thing here from Tatum. Like it's what you said of Tatum stinks. He's not a top 5 guy. He can't lead a team, and if he does, that team is stacked. Brown, same thing. Doesn't have a left hand. Like it was that of basically everyone shut the f up. Like look at us now. You can't say anything because we're on top of the world. So all the people that are still trying to clown Tatum for that, completely stupid. And I just think again, it's like you said, people that just have way too much free time and just want to argue with you, on social media over dumb things. There was one other thing because I know, like I said, I know we've covered a lot here. We kind of shared our thoughts on the MVP of Brown rightfully getting it. And that's obviously led people now to argue of like, oh, just Tatum feels slighted or whatever. Personally, I don't know if you feel the same way about this. The fact that Brown got the MVP, and again, I think he definitely should have deserved it. Tatum, like I said, made it interesting in the end. But you look at the votes, I think it was 7-4 in favor of Brown, so it wasn't really that close. I think Tatum not winning MVP is a good thing for the Celtics and for Brown and for Tatum. And the reason I say that is Jaylen Brown, with these MVPs, the Eastern Conference Finals one and this one, he is going to hopefully now get the recognition he deserves. And, maybe some more sponsorships will come his way. Because obviously that's been kind of a talking point about Brown a couple weeks back. We talked about that. Is he a marketable guy? That comment came up, which again was dumb. But I think it's going to be good for Brown. Hopefully that'll kind of propel him to a new level of his career. And for Tatum, it's another thing to drive for. Like Tatum has done so much in his young
Yeah.
career already, from the All Stars and the All NBAs and the NBA All Star Game MVP. The two things he hasn't, obviously now NBA champion. The two things he doesn't have yet is a Finals MVP, obviously, and a league MVP. And with Tatum, we've talked about this before. Like it's going to be tough, I feel like, for Tatum to win league MVP because there's just such a load of talent in the league now, and there is every year after year. He's definitely obviously going to want to get back to the finals, and this is something I think that's going to drive him because we've just talked about it. He's talked about what are people going to say now if people start getting on him for you don't have a finals MVP, like what are you going to do about that? I think that's a good thing for Tatum. I think it's something to drive him. It's obviously going to make him want to get back to the finals and get another one, which I think they obviously want to do already. So him not getting this MVP, I'm perfectly fine with it because again, I think that's something that's going to maybe linger within him of like, all right, Jaylen got his, I'm happy for him. But moving forward, I'm going to get myself one, and I'm going to just
Right.
solidify myself even more.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like I was talking to Matt about that earlier. Matt makes a good point in the chat. Like this is simple, but I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about. Like the Celtics would have beat Indy, Cleveland, and Miami if they were all fully healthy. Like they proved it.
Yeah, I mean, it's again the
Like
people that want to argue
look how
that
good
they
they
had a
are.
cupcake
Like
of a walk. Like, come on.
no one player is gonna fix that. Like if you had Luka Doncic to one of those teams, maybe like they
Hmm.
beat you. But even then, Luka complained more than he played good basketball at times. Like it was crazy. It was his
Hmm.
main priority, and you exposed that. Like you know they didn't let up on him. Like
No, and they definitely shouldn't ever have because again, you can exploit that guy, and that's like Luka's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but he has got a lot of whether it's growing up to do or as we talked about, jokingly, get in shape because that conversation has come up quite a bit.
I
If he,
mean, Doris Burke like indirectly called
yeah,
him
I
fat.
missed this, and you told me that she basically was like said that he needs to get in
Yeah,
shape
I
and lose
forget
some
what it
weight,
was
and
at this point.
mhm.
But yeah, she
Everyone's
made
kind of
some
echoed
sort
that
of,
same point though of like he
which is
needs
weird
to.
because she kind of like doesn't like the Celtics. It seems. You
Mhm.
think she would give Luka the benefit of the doubt. I like Doris Burke, but like I feel like she's kind of becoming weirdly biased against certain teams, which is
She
odd.
see, I feel the
Because I
same, but I
really
feel
like Doris Burke, but some of the way sometimes she carries herself in odd ways
See,
on the
I feel the same
broadcast.
way, but I also feel differently. Like years prior, I would agree with you that there's especially like I think matchup wise too, like you just said, like if it was Bucks Celtics, she tends to favor the Bucks in those matchups. I feel like more than the Celtics, but this year was I like at least to me feel a little differently. Like she was, and it's the NBA Finals, so you're gonna praise both teams a lot. I didn't mind. I thought Doris Burke had a really good NBA Finals. Like she's someone that like
Yeah,
I don't like hate Doris Burke, but I'm like all right, like there's I feel like better announcers out there. I thought she
yeah.
had a
There have just
great
been
final.
times
She
in the
was
past where
very
she
good in
like
this.
seems like a little biased against the Celtics, which is kind
Hmm.
of weird.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people picked up on that in the
I
past.
liked her a lot better than JJ Redick. Like JJ Redick was, I feel like,
Yeah,
insufferable at times.
I hope Pat isn't listening because Pat likes JJ Redick. I'm not a JJ Redick
I
guy,
liked him at
really.
the start, but like he kind of soured up. I'm like, all right, this guy's just kind of like, I don't want to say phoning it in because I feel like
I like,
you're gonna find out in a week or two that he's got the Lakers job locked up. But
I don't hate his analysis. I just like it. He kind of comes off
comes off as douchey.
a little
Like,
douchey to me, like a
mm,
little like too serious. I
feel
don't
the
know.
same way you do him.
I don't have like a hatred feeling towards him. It's just something about him I don't love
Hmm.
as much as some people because he is very good at his job and he does have experience in the NBA to back
For
it up.
sure.
And it might parlay into a coaching gig, but and I wish him the best. But nothing against him personally. It's just I don't know something rose me a little the wrong way with him.
Hmm.
What else do we want to touch on here, Ryan?
Not much. I mean, the only other thing is you kind of alluded to it earlier. Wick, and again, I don't know if this was in his drunken stupor, celebrating the championship, but he basically alluded to, and I don't know if this necessarily parlays into Al Horford coming because there's been maybe some whispers here and there that, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. Of like Al Horford, kind of the same thing of Tatum. Like, what else do you have to play for at this point? You won a title. You've been in the league 18 years. If you were just to ride off into the sunset, yeah, it would suck, but I wouldn't blame you for doing so because again, that would be one hell of a way to end a career, but. Wick basically said, everyone, we're going to do everything in our power to bring everybody back. We're running it back next year. If you look at, what this team has coming up, you said it. It's pretty obtainable with some of these guys. You're unrestricted
Hmm.
free agents. Luke Cornett, Xavier Tillman, and Sviva Hyluk. That's it. Restricted free agents. Kata and JD Davison. Sam Hauser's got a club option. You got to think that'll be picked up by the Celtics. And then obviously you have the two big ones. Tatum is up for his supermax extension of 5 years and
That's
286
gonna happen. Like,
0.3 million, which that's basically a done deal. Just put pen to paper on that already. And then Derek White is the other one, as you mentioned, the interesting one. What would an extension look like for him? I'm not going to ask you to put you on the spot, so that's just a rhetorical question. Got to think it'd be. I don't know if they can make it work similar to what Holiday signed for, but that maybe would be something. And I've said this before too. I think Derek White is the prime candidate to. We just want a title. I've blossomed in this system. I'll take a hometown discount, even though I know I could probably get way more money from a desperate team on the market. He strikes me as the type of guy that's like, I love being here. I love playing with these guys. If you need to
right.
offer me a discount to keep me here, I'll absolutely do that. So
Yeah, it
I'm not
needs to
really
be
worried with
reasonable.
any of, these current contract situations. Like you said, in a couple of years, depending on what the salaries look like, it might become a problem, but I think your window is still very much open. There's been some people talk about, was this a launching pad moment for the Celtics? Are they going to become the
Right.
next NBA dynasty? And I feel like that's kind of tough to
Tough to say
predict.
right now, but I
Yeah,
mean,
because
there's a reason to believe it.
Yeah, for sure. But that on the flip side of that is, I feel like a
At
lot of
least to go
people.
back to back.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like a lot of people were saying that about the Nuggets last year, and look what happened to them. So, again, I think that's why it's so tough to predict year to year. But they do open up, obviously, as the odds-on favorites to win next year. Is it? I think it was plus 280. I don't know if that's changed from yesterday to today. But yeah, like you said, you kind of alluded to this. You probably share the same mindset I do. A lot of these guys probably coming back, should be coming back, and if you have to make any sort of changes, can't imagine it's going to be anything too drastic with this team. They obviously seem like they want to run it back, and I don't know necessarily why they wouldn't at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you said everything that needed to be said.
Thank you.
Matt made another good point about our talk, and it goes back to the Tatum like MVP stuff. Larry Bird's first title, he didn't win the MVP finals.
Fair enough. I mean, he turned out pretty good, that Larry Bird. So
Jason Tatum is the all-time like best playoff scorer for anyone under 27 right now.
but if you ask
Like,
people, he still stinks, and this title was a fluke. And that's the other point too. Is I had the other thing I forgot to say is maybe it'll get a little corny. I feel like as maybe time goes on, of like, all right, dude, like enough, like we get it. But right now, the fuck you tour that he's on, I don't know if you were
yeah,
watching
dude,
the
like,
Nike commercial that came on immediately after the finals ended of him.
I don't remember it.
It was, if you missed it, he was up on a roof and they were over, playing over all the criticisms of Tatum in the background, and then they dropped. I can't remember what the banner said or the billboard said, but it was like a basically an FU type of thing from Tatum of like, what are people going to say now? So that was really cool to have that ready to go. And again, everything that he has said afterwards, like you said, of like, look at us now, like what are people going to say now?
Right.
I've loved it because I think he should ride that high and continue it. And again, because if there's any people that still are criticizing him or questioning him, like you said it earlier, they showed tremendous growth this season in more ways than one. So I don't know how you can really, debate anything at this point with this team.
Yeah, and one final thing I'll say about, the growth, and part of that happens with like, taking on leadership without smart is the Gamora and Thanos meme. It's like, what did it take to, like you
Yeah.
lost everything, what did it take, whatever that is. I always forget the exact
Mm-hmm.
thing, and it's like just a picture of Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
Bad for Marcus. Grant Williams was there. That was funny. Whatever. I guess just because Charles Lee probably coming back, like he
Yeah.
gets some
Yep.
sort of credit. Even though he took the Charlotte job, good for him.
Mm-hmm.
What a season, memorable season. The parade's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to be there. Last time I
It'll
was at a
be.
parade, people were throwing waffles at the Sox duck boat.
That's
Um,
right.
I don't really remember the backstory there. And the Patriots parade, I was
I'm
interning
trying
and
to remember
covering
what
that.
the
So
waffles. I don't know.
I haven't been to a parade as a legal drinker, so
Oh,
it's gonna
that
be
could
an
get crazy.
eventful day.
Mm-hmm.
Just responsibly, of course. But I mean, gotta celebrate, gotta live it up.
Something else really
It's
quick
gonna
that
be
just came
fun.
to mind. Because you mentioned a coach on the Celtics team, and again, it feeds into what I said earlier. Of, the amount of talent on this team. How could you forget to talk about someone? Um, Joe Mazzulla sets himself as a made man. I think all the criticisms of him, as we talk about, we finish up with people, doubting certain players and coaches on this team. I think Joe Mazzulla had a pretty good NBA Finals. I think he deserves a lot of credit as well. Get these guys to
Yeah,
play
I didn't
for
know
him, and
this. He came from just two like random colleges before going to the main Red Claws, and now I think he's like 35 and wins a championship.
he's the youngest coach in NBA history. And I'm gonna say because the caveat is Bill Russell when he did it was a player coach. So I think we should separate the two of them there and give Joe Mazzulla just and nothing against Bill
Mhm.
Russell. Don't get me wrong.
Of
Um,
course.
but give Joe Mazzulla that credit of the youngest coach in NBA history to win an NBA Finals. Like that's obviously a cool moment for him. And to see all
Grew
the
up in Rhode
players.
Island, Celtics fan.
Yep, local guy. So that was
I don't know
obviously
if he
great to
grew
see
up
as
there,
well.
but I heard something about Rhode Island. Maybe he was just
Definitely
born there.
from, yeah. I
Yeah, I
think
think he might
did he
have grown
play
up there.
there or he coached
I don't
something?
know. He's a
But
funny
yeah.
guy. He's talking to. I didn't listen to the part of my take thing yet, but talking about like he was like watch. I think he said he was like watching The Dark Knight with Tatum to like teach him lessons from the
Mhm.
movie.
Oh,
He's
he
so
shows
funny. Like
he's a strange dude. We knew that going
he
in, but
really is strange, but he's
mhm,
strange in a very like not endearing, but like appealing way. Like
mhm.
there are worse ways to be strange. It's that simple.
Absolutely, yeah,
He's
absolutely.
got his quirks. Like he's very like statistically driven too.
Mhm.
He's just a funny guy, and
He'll
what a,
show
like
videos of like animal fights to get guys going.
yeah,
And
like
Tatum said like MMA
that's like
fighters
dudes.
choke holding
That's
people.
like
Yeah.
that's like dudes rock type of stuff, showing like animal fights. But
Mhm.
any other notes we want to touch on here?
No, that was the only thing I was gonna say is like I feel like most people, like you and I just kind of said, like would think like that's a crazy thing for somebody to do. And NBA players, we know that ego is drives a lot of the NBA. But to do stuff like that and get your team to buy in and all these guys to play for you, as Joe Mazzulla did, like that obviously goes a long way as well. And again, can't say enough about him from where he came from, of everyone yelling about timeouts and this guy not being the guy. To coach circles around pretty much every coach he went up against in these playoffs,
Did
let alone the NBA finals. And
did
again, I don't think Jason Kidd's that good of a head coach to begin with. Um,
no, no.
great, great performance from Joe Mazzulla, and another guy. Again, you want to say that you're most happy for that guy, but you have all these other storylines and everything else like that
Right.
with Tatum, Brown, all them. Tatum, we didn't talk about this either really quick. Tatum, the coolest moment for him for me at that NBA Finals was watching him and Deuce, because like you usually see like a parent run over to their kid and hug them and tell them they're the best in the world. To see the flip of that, of Deuce do that, and then the confetti falling down, awesome moment there for Jason Tatum. Again, you can't say enough good things about everything that happened in this, and it's obvious, but it is what it is.
And one final thing, because he dropped his championship song today that'll be on his album. Cousin Stiz was told by Wick Grosbeck that he is the heart of the city. So if Cousin Stiz
Pretty
isn't
high
on
praise.
a duck boat on Friday, I'm going to be fucking pissed. And if Cousin Stiz is on a duck boat, I'm finding my way on that duck boat so I can shake his hand and I can tell him I can't wait for the album. This is going to be tremendous. He's the heart of Boston. I love that man. He's a wonderfully talented musician and a great dude. Thank you, Celtics.
Absolutely. Long time
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you to
Long
the green
time
guys,
coming.
the green team. What a phenomenal team. Just one you won't forget. Let's shift to some hockey.
Surprised that it's still going on, not gonna lie.
I am too, and I'm surprised we had all of this shit dropped in the afternoon. I was buzzing on Twitter and texting people for like 2 hours. We could have just talked about if the Oilers are going to come back, the history they'd make, what's going on in the series, stuff like that, a few notes, and then all of this shit just started happening. Let's get into it. The Oilers have forced Game 6. They went on the road in Game 5. Impressive performance. Got it done. Win Game 4. Stay alive. 8-1 at that point, despite being down 3-0. That evened the goals in the series at 12-12.
That's pretty
so
wild.
now the Oilers have the advantage of the series. What an FU game. McDavid's alive, Hyman's alive. The Oilers are alive. Stuart Skinner is, not lighting the world on fire, but he's making big saves a little bit more than he was before, giving them a chance to win. And they've found something so far, or lately, rather.
I was just gonna say, if I was gonna be honest, like that, and it happened obviously within 48 hours, 28 or 24 hours of what happened in the Celtics game. Like that to me felt like, all right, you just the same thing just happened to the Panthers that just happened to the Celtics. You gave the Oilers a game to say we'll just win it at home, and then to see Edmonton come out and play as well as they did last night. Now you're kind of in the belief of like, all right, maybe they got something here. So I wanted to ask you, because I had this conversation before we jump into anything else, with my grandfather on the golf course today, because we were obviously talking about this. I asked him who's the pressure on, do you think, going into Game 6? Do you think it's still on Edmonton to win
it is
at home and force a Game
1,000%
7, or you think it's on Florida? I thought it was. I want to lean Edmonton because I think you're at home, like
it's
to try to push you to a Game
point.
7, but
they shouldn't
you
even
feel
be
differently.
here.
Okay,
they should, because they're Edmonton, and we know what they're capable of. But
you should never blow a 3 games to none lead. Like that's your argument.
It is a cliche, but if you win Game 6, it is anyone's game. You proved you can win on the road. And here's the perfect graphic to back this up.
Okay.
Regular season, mind you. The Oilers, under Chris Knobloch, who took over after an epically bad start under Jay Woodcroft that led him getting fired. Chris Knobloch, former Erie Otters coach of Connor McDavid, and I believe Connor Brown, who's also on the team as well, back in Erie in the OHL. He takes over for Jay Woodcroft. They had a lot of threes here coming at you. 3-game losing streaks in the regular season. Here's what they did to snap out of those losing streaks. November 18th to 22nd, 3 straight losses. 8-game winning streak following those three straight losses from November 24th to December 12th. 3 straight losses from December 14th to 19th. A 16-game winning streak. December 21st to January 27th of 2024. We're crossing calendar years here, or no, crossing just years here. Three straight losses, February 21st to 24th, so the most recent. A 5-game winning streak following that. If there is a team, and this is, maybe grasping at
not
straws a
know
little bit
this.
because it's hard to do
Great
at
storyline,
any
though.
point. If there is a team in the playoffs, to my knowledge, no one else has done this. I think I can confidently say that nobody else has done this.
Yeah, I
That
feel like
was in the
there's not a
playoffs.
lot of
If there is a team to do it, it is Edmonton because they have done it and they have the two best offensive players in the world.
who have started to
And
show up
Zach
too.
Hyman, who
That's what
scored
should
54
scare
goals.
Florida for me. Like
It's
McDavid
big
has
time
woken up.
scary.
Hyman has woken up. Like I don't know what Draisaitl's
They're
done.
clicking.
But
I was just looking because I
Yeah.
think Draisaitl, he had a couple moments in game 3, one in game 4, where like he looked visibly hurt. Like he'd get hit pretty lightly and like hunch over.
grimace over, yeah.
He's got something going on and it might be bad. Draisaitl in this series, yeah, he's got 2 assists.
Yeah,
That's it.
very unlike him. You got to think there's some sort
Is
of
Leon
undermining problem.
Draisaitl next? Is he next up?
Maybe.
We've seen Leon Draisaitl drop 4-point games plenty of times. Leon Draisaitl is one of the best pure goal scorers in the NHL. Is this when he comes through? Did they shoot him up before the game with some pain meds, like they've probably been doing to McDavid, and get him going? Because he wants it. You know anything about Draisaitl, he wants it. He's clearly battling. He's playing all right for what he's playing through, but like we're not seeing prime Leon Draisaitl. I think he's playing through a lot. I don't want to act like a doctor here, but it looks like he's playing pretty hurt. 2 in the counting. You need 2 more. You won 2. You can win 2 more. You could also lose next. So that's what they have
possibilities.
That is their battle. I gotta check if the next game is tomorrow night or not. It is Friday night. So
Okay.
Friday night main event. What a series this has become. I'm glad because now that basketball is over, we still have something to watch besides baseball. And of course, I guessed up this series, and early on it looked like it was going to be a sweep, and now we're getting, what this series was capable of. And it's really tremendous because on top of me thinking the Stanley Cup finals are the best finals in sports, we're actually getting a series that's becoming competitive.
Mm-hmm.
For reference, a 3-0 series lead has only been overcome in the playoffs 4 times. 1942. This isn't any like specific round correlation. 1942 Cup Finals. Only time to ever happen in the Cup Finals. So it hasn't happened since 1942. Red Wings and Maple Leafs. Stanley Cup Quarters, 1975, back when the Islanders were in their heyday against the Penguins. Flyers Bruins in 2010.
As we know, yeah.
And most recently, Kings and Sharks. The Sharks came back. That was incredible. Barclay Goodrow, who found his wow, what a lineup. Barclay Goodrow ends up back with the Sharks today. He did it with the Sharks and scored the Game 7 overtime winner electric goal. Really full circle for the show. And for Barclay. It's only happened 4 times. It's only happened in the final once. Edmonton has a chance to make real history with some of the best players in the world in their team. I kind of like their odds.
I do too.
And
now,
that's
like
where we're
I didn't know about the win streak stat. The fact that that's in there and the fact that that's
Crazy.
happened, like I said, what a storyline that would be to do that 3 times going into the playoffs and then finish off you stare death in the face in the Stanley Cup Finals, go down 3-0, and to finish off your season with a 4-game win streak to clinch things after you did that already 3 times this year. That'd be pretty damn awesome.
I gotta find this now. The Merchant of Death, Arya Stark in Game of Thrones. What do we say to the Merchant of Death? Not today.
Yeah.
I want to make sure
Fitting.
I got that right.
Very fitting.
Yeah. House
Like
of the
you
Dragon,
said, though,
by
too,
the way.
they got the
Real quick
horses
side
to do
note,
it.
Fantastic House of the Dragon. No, I can't find the quote. I'm not gonna look for it. I think I nailed it though off memory.
You think it sounds right?
Arya Stark, goated character. What were you saying before that?
No, I was just gonna say the Edmonton's got the horses to do it, and again, the fact that they have woken up, if they get Draisaitl going even the slightest bit that he's capable of, like I don't think you can definitely, you can't disagree with there being a game seven. Like you said, game sevens, anything can happen. I said it earlier to my grandfather. I'm like, if that happens, as we know, bet the under and bet the game going into
Yeah.
overtime because that's how these games usually go. So,
I thought last night was the one we were due for overtime. I even bet on it to go to overtime.
mhm,
Yeah, if there's a team in this position to do it, you'd think it's got to be the team with the best offense in the league. Um, so we will see. I'm very excited. I want to see 7, but you got to win 6 first.
true.
Um,
That's how math
and
works.
Florida is still Florida. Let's not forget that. But they've exposed a little bit more of the Butitsky side of Sergei Bobrovsky, which is classic because
Right.
he was
Yeah.
minus 500, went to plus 100. I put $20 on him to win the Conn Smythe in case Florida won last night and they lost. So
Of
we'll
course,
see what
that's how
happens.
it usually goes for
He could
me.
still get it. He could still get it in 6 or 7. He could still get it if they win. More likely 6, but we'll have to see.
Yep.
Maybe I just made a bad call there, but we're
Jinx
we're at
somebody.
least we're due for one more in that special. It could have ended in 4.
Yep.
But
Like I
man,
said, I was
we got a doozy.
fully convinced Florida was just playing with Edmonton, being like, all right, well,
Yeah.
and then you had people too that were like, ooh, Jason Tatum and Kachuk are going to be in the same area. You're like, do they want to, both celebrate at the same time? Like,
Did
you had
Jason
that.
Tatum jinx Matthew Kachuk by
Yeah.
wishing him luck to win it?
Oh, maybe.
Does that destroy Jason Tatum's legacy?
I hope not.
Let's catch up on some other stuff. Because some stuff happened leading into today, but a lot of stuff happened today. Capo Caco gets a 1-year re-up with the Rangers. I think he stinks. He is making 2.4 million next year. It's not over for Capo Caco. I just think I don't even know if a change of scenery is going to help him, but it's the fit with the Rangers just doesn't work. I think if they can find a trade for him, they should. Don't really have much else to add on that deal, but you got to hope for the Rangers' sake. The team that might bring Patrick Kane back, that's a rumor right now. He felt like he wasn't at 100% apparently when he was with the Rangers dealing with the hip recovery. And he kind of wants a chance to redeem himself if they are willing to bring him in. And it seems like there might be mutual interest. So watch for Patrick Kane. I'd say seems like Detroit back again or the Rangers. Philip Roenick, and this one drew some eyes. Philip Roenick, new D partner of Quinn Hughes, who had a phenomenal season, I believe 92 points, 17 goals. Should win the Norris, but Cale Makar does exist. So does Roman Yossi, but I think it's Quinn Hughes' award to lose. I bet on Quinn Hughes to win the MVP earlier this season. I knew it probably wasn't going to win, but if he went absolutely insane, maybe it would, and it'd be a fun bet to hit. $175 payout. Philip Roenick stays, and he will be the mainstay next to Quinn Hughes. Pretty bad playoffs for Philip Roenick, to be honest, but it's a guy that's shown he's capable of 38 to like 43 points in 3 of his last 4 years. Plays with some physicality, can move the puck well enough, has some size. We'll see how that works out. 7.25 million a year for 8 years, Philip Roenick. Those contracts can always age poorly, but they gave up a first-round pick for the guy, and he fit pretty well with your guy who's going to win the Norris Trophy. So I think it's in your best interest, even if you feel like you got to overpay a little bit, to keep one Philip Roenick. I feel like this kind of went under the radar because it came out from a Swedish publication, but it looks like Oscar Steen and the Bruins will part ways. Kind of makes sense. Got a big shot with the Bruins this year. I think he had 1 goal in like 40 games. That was his only point production. I like the player. I liked him more as a player going into this year. I think he was kind of invisible a lot. His spot is taken, whether it's Lauco, Rizzo, or anyone else they might bring in. It wasn't going to work. So it makes sense for him to explore options elsewhere. Wish him the best. I forgot to mention this a couple weeks ago. They drafted goalie Reed Dick a couple of years ago.
Unfortunate.
And they let his rights expire in, I think, like early June. So they will not be signing Reed Dick for anybody who didn't see that. But they got goalies.
Yeah, I think they're covered in that position more so than not.
They're all right. They'll survive. You can always draft one too. Jeff Skinner might be bought out, and Ryan. How does the name Jeff Skinner sound to you if he gets bought out?
You're gonna have to tell me what he did stat-wise last year. I'm gonna try to pull it up really quick, but you might know off the top of your head more than I would.
Jeff Skinner, despite playing for a long time, has never played a playoff game, so he could do that with the Bruins.
Okay.
He's good. He's
24 and 22
revitalized
last year.
himself.
I don't hate that at all.
Yeah, he's revitalized things lately. He had 40 goals a few years back, 35, 33 the years prior. He's good. I just think the Sabres are trying to accelerate things, and they feel like they can use some of the wiggle room from buying him out to add different players, add in different areas of the roster. Apparently, he's a good player, but they just probably don't feel like 46 points was worth keeping
That type
9
of
million
money.
on the books
Yeah.
for.
Okay.
He's very good though. Like he drives play well on the wing. He does nothing on defense though. That's the bad thing. Maybe they don't
Yeah,
like that
it's
either.
okay.
If you look at Jay Fresh's charts, he tweeted out yesterday, really good offensive metrics. The even strength defense is a goose egg. He is
Yeah, it's nuts.
imitating Patrick Kane in that way.
Not good.
Great, offensive play driving winger. Didn't have quite the productions as years prior. Production as years prior. Maybe they're trying to do some damage control. Maybe they feel like it might get a little worse. Maybe they want to just go a different direction and give him a shot elsewhere. I think a contender will absolutely sign Jeff Skinner, and I wonder if the Bruins will. And I wouldn't hate it because he will give stuff back. But we talk a lot about players the Bruins could bring in and be like, hey, maybe with certain defensive minded players on his line, maybe that doesn't hurt the team as much. But it has to be right. He's kind of like similar in a Matt Duchene type of player. Matt Duchene gets bought out. He's available. I want him for the Bruins. They don't get him, but he's a center. Matt Duchene also plays better defense. So that's a little bit more appealing, but I'd take Jeff Skinner for the right price. I
I wouldn't hate it.
It's also not 100% official yet. It seems like we're getting to that point, but you kind of wonder, like, do they just write it out one more year so they get one more year or 2 more years less they have to deal with the buyout for after next season? But the Sabres want to make the playoffs. If they feel like they got to make this cutthroat move, they're clearly doing it for a reason. And I don't know. I said this to a friend earlier. I'm looking at them to get Brady Tkachuk if he gets moved.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, they got the picks, they got the prospects, tons of prospects. Some younger roster players too that they might be able to part with, like a Jack Quinn maybe. I don't think Brady Tkachuk will get moved this offseason, but if things go bad next year, I could see them shopping him at the deadline, and or if he wants out, maybe he asks to go to a contender by then, and maybe by next fall, if it's the offseason, he just gets traded because you got to have a short fuse at some point. But he is the captain, so I don't think he's going to request a trade after this type of year. But if it gets bad, he might. He wants to win. He's a Tkachuk. They're psychos.
Yes, they are.
The Devils get their guy. The Bruins have a suitor off the board. Jacob Markstrom at 31.3% retained is going to New Jersey finally. This has been in the works for months. Months and months and months. Shout out to fellow full press guy Jim Behringer has been on this for months since like April, talking about the saga with back and forth with Jacob Markstrom. And the Flames and the Devils goes to the Flames, goes to the Devils from the Flames for a top 10 protected pick next year and Kevin Bell. Good deal. You don't have to give the 10th overall pick. That would have been funny if they did. But that pick is also available, so maybe they make that available for an upgrade elsewhere. Maybe they get really aggressive in New Jersey. For New Jersey, you get a goalie that had one of the best seasons of goal save above expected, and they were 31st in goal save above expected last year. So you get a guy that can not only stop pucks, he can stop high danger pucks, and that's a huge difference maker. The Devils have revitalized their crease with Jake Allen last year and Jacob Markstrom. So takes a Olmark Suter off the board. Don't know if he would have went there anyway. NRD, NHL Rumors Daily said he kind of gets the sense that Olmark might just not waive his no trade clause go anywhere. And we might get screwed.
I hate that so much.
So this is where I'm at with that. Olmark has the right to do this.
I understand that.
Olmark also kind of talked about a revenge tour and that he wants to play for a contender. At this point, you have to know if you're Olmark that if things go besides a catastrophe for Swayman, you are going to sit on the bench again in the playoffs.
You're not going to play, yeah.
You are going to ruin a potential payday for yourself a little bit. A little bit. If he plays good enough for the regular season, it won't be that crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get to a certain point where if the Bruins, I think, try to trade you again, unless it's to an awful destination, you kind of have to take the benefit of the doubt and be like, okay, this team feels like they want to move on from me. They don't want me. Like, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to start being number one somewhere else. Like, it's an ugly situation waiting to happen, I think. But I don't know. It might get dicey with Omar this summer.
I will commend him for the just I don't care attitude of like, oh,
Yeah.
it's whatever. But like, if I were to tell, like, if I was actively trying to find like a replacement podcast co-host to do this with Mike, and you found out, I feel like you probably wouldn't take that too well. So I said it before when we
Yeah.
talked about this. Like, it blows my mind that Omar, the Bruins, they have come out, not them themselves, but it has come out that they are trying to trade you. They are trying to get rid of
For
you
a while now.
for a while, exactly, for years.
No matter
And
what Don Sweeney says, like, oh no,
dude, the
trying to
reports are
play
out
it
there.
down.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't play coy, Don. But the fact that Omar's just like, oh, it's whatever. Like, I'm gonna come back and play. No, you're not. Like you said, you get into the playoffs. It's Swayman's job to lose. We know that.
They're like, you owe it to yourself, man.
That too. Like, yeah,
Like,
especially if you're gonna bet on
maybe
yourself for a
it's a West
revenge
Coast
tour.
thing. He
Like,
really doesn't want to go to West Coast. If he says no, if Colorado wants him, I
yeah,
don't know what the
he's
fuck he's
just
doing.
stupid at that point. Yeah.
Like, deal
I
with
want to
it.
play for a contender and
Hey,
try to win a cup, but I also don't want to go out there to one of the best chances to win a
maybe
cup.
he
So I don't
loves
know.
Colorado, even though if it's West Coast, and Colorado wants to extend him. I think that might be part of the sticking point too. He wants to go somewhere that would extend him, unless it's like
That's
Ottawa.
fair.
He might
Yeah.
not want to extend with Ottawa. Ottawa can bounce back, but like something is wrong with the nucleus a little bit there in
Yeah.
Ottawa. It's going to take more
You
than
need a
just
sure
getting a
bet for sure.
goaltender. Um, and he owes it to himself to pick where he wants to go, but it's a dicey situation. There's a lot going on. I'll say this for New Jersey's sake too. They had to give up Kevin Ball in the deal. Don't think that's a bad thing. He's a young, tall defenseman, but he takes a fucking ton of penalties. So you're kind of getting rid
Very
of a guy
undisciplined.
that creates penalty kill opportunities
Getting rid of a head
for you.
case is what you're saying?
So, and they signed Seamus Casey, who's a stud defensive prospect out of Michigan, who could realistically make the team. I love Seamus Casey. Anybody who listens to the show, he's one of my draft gems. But I don't know. It's pretty weird. We'll see how the saga pans out. I think the Bruins are going to try hard to trade Omar by the draft.
For anyone
Whether they
listening
can or
too,
not.
that was just a metaphor. We're not actively shopping any co-hosts here or anybody.
No.
No one is leaving.
No,
But
no one is leaving.
just to try to
Not
hammer home the
anytime soon.
point, I think that would fit well.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere.
Mhm.
Let's just we're going out of order in the outline here, but let's just stay with the Omar
It's
stuff.
okay. We did it for
Um,
Celtics too, so it's just the theme at this point.
Bruce Garriott from the Ottawa Sun reported something similar to this like a month ago about the whole Chikrin first round pick and an additional pick thing. He doubled down on that again today. This was, I imagine, partially spurred by the whole Markstrom thing and the goaltending market heating up. We also had another goalie move, which we'll get to in a second. A league executive believes the Senators would likely have to offer defenseman Jacob Chikrin along with a first round pick and another selection to acquire Omar. Even then, he has a modified no trade clause. There's 15 teams on it. It is not known if Ottawa's on the list. This is like the same quote as before. So it's kind of just reiterating that point. And he also like quote tweeted his own article saying like, hey, like the Senators want to try this again. So it's going to take a lot of convincing. But maybe you get Omar to go to Ottawa. That'd be funny at the end of all this. If Omar just like is willing to go to Ottawa and they like buy out Corpusalo, kind of do like what the Kings did. We'll talk about that in a sec. With a certain player with a big contract. But I'll say right now, given the landscape changing a little bit today, I'll put Ottawa in there as an Omar suitor. In the miraculous scenario, he's willing to go there. I do think they have interest, and the Bruins get a nice return. I don't think they would get the 7th overall pick. I think that first would be one next year. Maybe top 10 protected. Most likely top 10 protected because Ottawa could be bad again, but I think they believe they can be better, especially with a goalie. Columbus, we talked about the Don Waddell connection with Carolina. Maybe he pursues that to upgrade over Elvis Merzlikins. Seems like everything he's saying, he really wants to like make hard changes. They let go of their coach yesterday. They're about to trade Patrick Laine. They're letting pieces go. Like they're gonna switch up their roster a lot. I think he could re-enter that discussion. Carolina, of course, we'll see how Eric Tulsky feels. Now that Waddell is gone, I don't know what Carolina's interest is at this point, but we know they have had interest in the past few weeks or so. Edmonton, this is likely like if they lose, like Skinner is good enough, but do they feel like they can upgrade on Skinner and that gets them over the top? That's really the only reason they would do this. I kind of feel like they might just stick with Skinner. But if they really feel like Omar can push them over the top, if they lose, I wonder if they start something up there and try and figure something out. But again, when I think of places Omar might not want to go, I think of Canada and I think of the West Coast. So maybe he doesn't want to go there,
Not a fit.
but it's it goes back to the contender side of things.
Like
I get to play on a
something
team with
has to
Connor
give.
McDavid
You
and Leon
can't.
Draisaitl.
Yeah.
Something has to give.
I get
Thank you, dude.
that, but that like that goes against a no, like that's what a no trade clause is.
fucking-
But still, like it's a little too wacky at this point.
Oh man, it is.
Like you can't say
Colorado.
you
We
want all
talked
these
about
things
Colorado.
and then leave
Right.
the Bruins with like the possibility of trading you, like you said, to Ottawa and a couple other crap bag teams. Like, all right, man.
Can we Photoshop him on the International Man of Mystery movie poster, but just like the Swedish version of it instead of Austin Powers? Because my God, he's confusing me a little bit. Playing
I'll just
4D
stay
chess
here
in
and
the
sit
worst
for
way.
40 something games. It's
I
fine.
don't get it,
Okay.
man.
It's just you do you, man.
It's really weird. Maybe he's just playing hardball.
I'll take
Maybe
all of the playoffs off. It's fine. Okay. Whatever you say, happy go lucky.
I don't know. It's weird. And I love the guy still. I want to keep that clear. Colorado, we gave the spiel on that. They want to upgrade Nick Georgiev. I think they'd be wise to do so. No matter how they feel about the guy, because it didn't work. Omar is a much better goalie than him. It's that simple. They have assets that can appeal to the Bruins. Detroit. Nobody really talks about Detroit a lot. Philly Husso and Alex Lyon is not enough to win you or get you into the playoffs, in my opinion.
Let alone win you anything. Yeah.
Sebastian Cossa, their top goalie prospect, they're clearly going with a long approach with him. He played in the ECHL a lot this year. Took him 15th overall, ECHL. They're taking a long development approach. Trey Augustino, they drafted last year, great college goalie, won't be ready for a few years. If you want to make the playoffs, kind of similar to Buffalo with like making certain moves, they're in that Buffalo territory. Get a goalie, make some upgrades. Detroit can absolutely make the playoffs with the right offseason. Absolutely can take a wild card spot. I think getting Linus Ullmark would go a long way. More East Coast, maybe he'd be amicable to that. Toronto wants Linus Ullmark. Good luck. David Pagnotta said that today, kind of like a grain of salt thing, but like they have asked about Ullmark apparently. They've also asked about UC Saros. I think UC Saros is the goalie that Toronto should go after very heavily, personally. And Nashville wants to extend him, but they should trade him because Yaroslav Askarov was taken with the 13th overall pick by Nashville, and he's playing excellent in the AHL for a little while now. Give the guy a chance. Bring in a veteran, ease him in. Just get a bunch for Saros. Because you should have traded him last summer, probably, in my opinion. And you could have got a fucking shit ton, but you wanted like 2 first-round picks, and nobody was paying that for a goalie.
No.
That's where we're at on Ullmark. We'll see what happens. Something could happen by next show. But we will be doing one more episode, draft-related stuff, before the draft next Wednesday. Let's circle back a little back in the outline here. A little Marty Nietzsche's update, but it's been a little quiet on him. They have received concrete offers, but they're undecided on what they want to do. Things could heat up closer to the draft. From Pierre LeBrun, kind of status quo, but they're kind of in the camp. It seems like we need to be blown away by an offer. Kind of feels like the Ducks are kind of that way for Zegras as well. So we'll see if Trevor Zegras moves. That could be a big draft day move. Ty Dellandrea was traded by the Stars to the Sharks. Kind of like an odd man out. They gave him a 1-year deal last year. He was an RFA again. Thankfully, didn't plan on having him in their future plans, really. So they give him a chance to probably play a decent amount in San Jose. I like Ty Dellandrea. He's a hard-working player. But, they have Logan Stankoven. For anybody who watched the playoffs, he watched him really step up. They could bring Matt Duchene back. I think he was a great fit there. Maverick Bjork. His name is spelled Bork, but people say Bjork. And now I say Bjork, but I think it's Bork. And he's great. And he was the best player, arguably, in the AHL last year. So he's probably going to need a roster spot. Stankoven. So this is kind of a move to make some space. Give Ty Dellandrea the benefit of the doubt. The Sharks now own his RFA rights. I screamed when I saw this trade, Ryan. And that is the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, because there are rumors that the Bruins might get him in an Omar trade, which really would have made me experience extreme hatred for Don Sweeney. Not that I think Pierre-Luc Dubois can't figure it out, but he got that long-term extension. You
There's
think
a
it could work
pattern
out in
here.
LA, and he's already traded less than a calendar year after signing an 8-year extension. He is a guy that is capable of 60 plus points. He had 40 points last year. He was lazy. He got demoted to the fourth line for a good chunk of the season for a reason. Clearly, Washington thinks they can fix that. And they have a needed center. They got Dylan Strome. Nicholas Backstrom's career is almost undoubtedly over. Hendrix Lapierre is developing, but you can afford to play him a little lower in the lineup as he goes through the early stages. Connor McMichael can move to the wings. This is where things get interesting because, again, anyone who knows the show, I have a guy I pick as my draft gem every year. One guy, maybe two. Pierre-Luc Dubois goes for Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper back with the LA Kings, where he had his first really great season back in the day. He goes back. Pierre-Luc Dubois makes $8.5 million to 2031. Darcy Kemper makes like 5.25 for the next 3 years. He's 34. The Kings might be out of the Olmark market. Probably are out of the Olmark market. That's okay because you already know I traded there. Don't have to sugarcoat it, Don Sweeney. We know what happened.
But
really ugly trade. The Kings give up Velarde, Iafallo, Kapari, and I think a couple picks for Dubois. And LA has to say, we got to get out of this contract less than a calendar year in and gets a 34-year goaltender in return. Pretty rough, but I got to be honest, I have respect for Rob Blake for not just buying him out and eating a million years of that buyout. They traded him. They took a loss in the trade, and they said, clean slate. We'll take the loss here. Live and you learn. Rob Blake is a relatively more inexperienced GM. That's a mistake. He acknowledged that. He made the trade. Pierre-Luc Dubois can absolutely work out in Washington, but we say this everywhere he goes.
I was just going to say, we've played that tune before.
I'm not putting it out of the possibility that in the next 2 years, Pierre-Luc Dubois is on another team. Maybe it won't happen in one calendar year. If you're making a trade like this, you're not trading him next summer. But this guy, he's very good, but he's inconsistent. He's got attitude problems. He's got mental stuff going on. This is his fourth team at age 25 as a third overall pick.
Yeah, that's not great. That does not bode a whole lot of trust in the situation with him.
No, but I mean, I give Washington credit for having the balls to take this on.
Sure, absolutely. Especially if they need a player at his position.
Yeah, I mean, you got Dylan Strome, Pierre Dubois now. You got Connor McMichael. You got Hendrix Lapierre. That's what you're looking like at center, and it could work. Hendrix Lapierre is a great prospect, and Connor McMichael is slowly becoming more of an established player. Speaking of Connor McMichael, I wonder if Connor McMichael will become a Boston Bruin.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Okay, go ahead.
I wonder if this trade was not only to get Pierre-Luc Dubois because they clearly wanted him, they're willing to take on the risk, but if they're not done goaltending wise, they have conceivably enough room to add a guy like Linus Ullmark. Connor McMichael is really their only big internal free agent, and they have a good amount of cap space. They can accommodate that $5 million from Ullmark. Maybe McMichael's RFA rights are part of the deal to Boston. Connor McMichael, one of my guys. That year, he was my guy. He was my draft gem. I love Connor McMichael. So I'm a little biased, but I wonder, with this ad of a center in Pierre-Luc Dubois, that makes Connor McMichael a little bit expendable. Do they want to move him to the wing, or do they want to leverage him in a trade to create a new goalie tandem? Charlie Lindgren, who was great last year, huge part of the reason they got in the playoffs, makes $1.1 million and is unproven in the playoffs. And when he played in the playoffs this year, the Capitals, despite being outmatched, got their doors blown off. Alexander Ovechkin's career is not going to last much longer. He's going to play out his contract, he said. That's next year, this upcoming year, and next year. Don't you think they'd want to make a tactical lateral move upgrade if they could get a guy like Linus Ullmark and try and get Ovi into the playoffs and see what happens?
Yeah, you would think. Wouldn't be the worst thing possible.
I'm talking number 17 overall, and I'm talking Connor McMichael. That would be enough for me. And they'd probably get something else, because clearly, from what we've heard about Linus Ullmark, whether this Ottawa thing with Chikrin and 2 picks, including a first, means anything, Ullmark has a pretty good amount of value. And we've seen goalies go for relatively high first-round picks in the past before. So I wonder. And that leads to the fact that the Bruins could take my gem from this year, Michael Hage, at 17, and I'd be pumped. I love Michael Hage. I've said that on the show before. Some people joked that Cat Friendly was bought by the Capitals because they knew they were going to trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois, and they didn't want people to be able to see Pierre-Luc Dubois' contract at Cap
Awful
Friendly. Very
contract.
funny.
Yeah. Okay.
You could just call him. You could just call it Caps Friendly now. Because you're the Caps. Like, come on now. I had to. Sorry, corny.
It's a layup.
I'm looking at Washington as an Omar spot, man. I really am.
Makes a
And
lot
I don't
of
see a lot
sense.
of
It really
people
does.
talking about it. I think it makes a ton of sense. And I'm
Mhm.
honestly surprised I didn't get kind of roasted for it a little bit. I don't know why. I kind of expected people to disagree with me, but
Yeah.
I think it makes a ton of sense. And
It really
like,
does. Yeah.
it's not that far from Boston.
That's what, yeah, it fits the if he wants to stay in the East Coast and wants to have all these
And
different
sure, he might not view them as a
requisites.
contender, but he gets to play with Ovi.
True.
You know, any team with Ovi can make the playoffs, man. And they did miraculously this year when they probably shouldn't have. That was a crazy trade. I think Pierre-Luc Dubois can return to his 60-point form in Washington. It just matters about consistency. If I'm Washington, give him some time with Ovi, find the fit. And if it's on the second line without Ovi, you just got to make him comfortable because you took on this risk. So the Kings are like, whatever. We got out of this contract. We can make it work. Gives them some flexibility to maybe steal a center from the Bruins. I'll be honest.
What does
They
that
need a
say
center
about
now.
Dubois though? That like we need to get out from this guy. Like that's how I take it. Of like we
I
can't
think he's just an
coexist.
ass.
That's what I
think he's an
mean. Like
ass.
we need to get rid of this guy because he is not wearing like that does not bode well for
Yeah.
that guy at all.
No, it doesn't. And Washington is willing to do it.
Mhm.
But yeah, unless they want Philip Deneau as their second line center, I mean, Kopitar's not getting any younger. They need to potentially commit to a center long term, unless they plan on moving Quentin Byfield back to center. He played top line with Kopitar, and I believe Fiala most of last year and thrived. And he needs a new deal, so this frees up some money to sign QB 55. So he might be on a bridge deal. Like this is his first like real breakout year, so I wonder if they get him on a lower end, like 2-3 year bridge deal to start. Maybe they're willing to commit because I think he's the real deal. If they committed a big time deal for him, I don't think they would be wrong to do so. I think he's a powerhouse, and he's only going to get better. Like I said, Barclay Goodrow returns to San Jose on waivers. Cool homecoming. I think the Rangers just put him on to see if put on waivers to see if anyone would bite. Free up some cap space. They got to sign a guy like Lafreniere. That's their biggest priority, I think, unless I'm missing something. And the Sharks took him for nothing. The Sharks realistically could have been like, hey, how about you give us a pick to take on the contract? They just took him for free for some reason.
That was nice of them.
Maybe it was the playoff goals this year, but they're not going to make the playoffs. That'd be kind of weird. Maybe they just like the guy. Maybe they're like, fuck it, you
Maybe.
know?
Good
Makes
locker room guy.
3.8 million to kind of stink for the next 3 years. So, yeah. One final thing before we get to some Red Sox. We have a trade brewing between the Senators and the Flyers, and it could happen on draft night, it seems like. But Travis Yost, who was dropping bombs all day, he dropped the Jacob Markstrom trade. He believes the Senators and the Flyers are the framework of a trade in place, though this one might happen closer to the draft. Ottawa owns pick 7. Philly picks 12th. Is this just a trade down for Ottawa? They've loved Scott Laughton in the past in Ottawa. Is Scott Laughton involved? Jacob Chikrin has been of interest to the Flyers. Shane Pinto has been of interest to the Flyers in the past. Thomas Chabot as well. Are we going to see a mega deal with high first round picks and one or two of these guys? Or are we seeing like the Flyers move up from 12 to 7 and they give up a couple additional picks to move up to get a guy they like? Could be that. Could be something big on the horizon. So something to watch. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen on draft night. So something to watch. Senators and Flyers, potentially a blockbuster with some big names on the move. Be pretty crazy if Thomas Chabot was moved. Be a pretty big name.
Yes, it would.
So that's about it. On to some Red Sox stuff. Also go Oilers. Come on, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please do the funniest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Please do the funniest thing
How
ever.
poetic would that be after what happened last year with the Bruins and what Florida was able to do to have
losing,
that on a
losing 9-3. They lost 9-3 in the clincher.
Yeah.
It all starts with an 8-1 loss that spirals into them blowing a lead that has never happened in the Cup final since 1942. Oh man, what good stuff that would be. What good stuff.
For sure.
I love this sport.
You
what
are
about
right,
the Red
though.
Sox round? What's going on?
Yeah, it's funny. We spent the last 2 weeks talking down about the Red Sox front office and ownership group, and now are we going to praise the Red Sox this week? Because I don't know if they listened to the podcast and whatnot, and maybe wanted to just kind of go on their own little FU tour, as maybe the Celtics we just talked about did. But the Red Sox have been playing pretty good baseball, and they have not been beating any slouches. Take 2 out of 3 from the Phillies. They outscore them in that series 18-13. A series that did not get off to a great start when Kyle Schwarber, in his homecoming, launches 2 home runs the first night of that series. Wasn't looking great, but the Red Sox bounced back to win a couple of games in that series. Yankees series up next, and Alex Verdugo comes to town, and what does he do in his first at bat in that game? He launches a home run dead away center field. I think he had like 3 or 4 hits in that game as well. Red Sox bounce back, win that series 2-1, and outscore the Yankees 18-15, and have a very entertaining. I don't know how much of this game you saw. The Sunday night baseball game, probably not. There might have been was there a Cup Finals game on that night too? Oh no, it wouldn't have been because it was ESPN that had the baseball game.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So dumb question there on my part, but yeah, I watched
It's
pretty
okay.
much all that Father's Day game, and it was one of the more entertaining Red Sox games.
Oh, I was driving back to my apartment during that, so
Okay, so
I
yeah,
didn't really think to watch it when I got back. I was kind of gassed.
fair enough.
Chilled, so.
But yeah, I mean, it was a very entertaining game. I think they had 9 stolen bases or something ridiculous, or for a franchise record. David Hamilton had 4 of them.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Hamilton had
4
in the
steals
game.
in one game?
If you watch into the game,
Why
it would have been
haven't I
like,
heard of this? Does nobody care about the Sox anymore? Jeez.
no. The answer to that question is no. But yeah, Red Sox played well in that series against the Yankees. They're currently, I believe, tied with the Blue Jays tonight, but have already taken 2 out of 3 games in that series. And the Blue Jays aren't anywhere near the Yankees or Phillies this year. But again, the Red Sox are playing good baseball. They're winning games in different ways. They're blowing teams out. They're winning close games. They're getting a lot of production from a lot of these young guys. As I just said, David Hamilton, you look up and I didn't realize until the other night, David Hamilton's a couple of ticks off of like 300 for his batting average. He's been very good. You got people trying to
trade.
Yeah, worked out pretty well. You got people trying to petition for Jarren Duran in the All-Star game, which I think is a little fluky because his numbers are good, but they're not All-Star good. Like, let's be honest here.
Yeah, I saw some people
look in the mirror,
getting
Red Sox
upset
fans.
about that.
Yeah, let's
can I mention
backtrack
something
on
real
that.
quick to
Sure.
not put the downer on the end? Luis Perales needs Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, when you said that to me today, I was like, that kind of sucks. That was one of your better pitching prospects, and now he's
really
gone
good.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of them.
No.
We don't have a lot of great pitching prospects.
No, you do not. But yeah, I mean, the youth has been great. Obviously, we know what Rafael has been doing of late. A guy that was batting like 190 a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and now his batting average is hovering near 250. You got the usual suspects. Devers is playing really well still. Coming in tonight, they're 39-35, just 2 games out of that final wild card spot behind the Royals, while 3.5 up on the Blue Jays. It's been an interesting team. It makes you, I was thinking this the other day, especially watching that Yankees series, that it makes you a little aggravated. That this is a team that they did not invest a little bit more in. We just jinxed Jarren Duran, by the way. He just hit a home run to give the Red Sox the lead in the game against Toronto. So maybe he is an all-star. I don't know. But yeah, kind of watching these Red Sox of late, that's where my mind has been at. Like, I'm trying to take the positive from it and say that, they're playing interesting baseball. They're a lot of fun to watch. A lot of these young guys are starting to pop, which is good to see. But then on the flip side, I go back to, this is a team that if the ownership knew what they were doing, maybe should have known a little better that we do have these young guys that are worth investing in for this year. Let's maybe add some veteran pieces to this team.
They don't even have to be long-term guys.
Exactly. Let's make a little bit more of an effort to, when we have injuries, as we've talked about before, maybe sustain these injuries a little bit better with some actual major league talent instead of, the Chase Andersons of the world. Cooper Criswell was decent in his role, but he got optioned back to Worcester, I think, either today or yesterday. But that was the question I was going to ask you. And you maybe are not as in tune with this team as you said. You haven't been watching a lot of Red Sox games. And I don't blame you for it because, again, leading into this month,
it'll happen after the Cup Finals.
Exactly, too. You said it earlier that, once hockey ends, it's really only baseball to pay attention to. I want to get excited for this Red Sox team. I want to have hope that this Red Sox team will continue to play this way and that, maybe the front office will look into buying into this team this year. But we've seen this story with this Red Sox team and this organization before. They have had these scrappy years where they're overachieving. Keep in mind, overachieving. They're not underachieving like their idiot front office thinks. But we've seen this story before, that the Red Sox have these type of years. And when you get to the trade deadline and we need to spruce this team up a little bit to try to make a playoff run, whether you think they're in it or not, ownership does not do it. And I don't think they're going to do it again this year. I think, as we talked about last week, John Henry only sees his team as an asset. So I don't think, whether they're 2 games out of the trade deadline, whether they're in a playoff spot at the trade deadline, or, flailing as we get to the trade deadline and things have gone south, which I don't think that's going to be the case because you're only going to get healthier and these young guys are only going to get better. I can't shake it. I can't shake that we've seen this story before. I can't shake that. I don't think they're going to see this team as worth investing in. They see this as another year of, we'll get these young guys a lot of playing time. We'll get them to improve, which is fine. But again, like if this team is going to go on these runs like they have been, and again, maybe this doesn't keep up. I don't know. We said with the Celtics, you can't predict the future. But if they keep playing well and they give you something to believe in, if you're the ownership group, like you said, you don't have to, as John Henry doesn't ever want to do. You don't sell the farm to make trades. You can make pieces here and there that should help your team. Go out and get another starter for this team. Go out, maybe get a bullpen piece or another bat in case you have like a guy like Casas, his injury lingers and he doesn't really come back as he should. Maybe the middle infield doesn't fall apart, but Vaughn Grissom's hurt right now, so he's kind of a question mark. You don't know if Hamilton and Valdez are going to be able to keep up what they've been doing. So maybe you get a cost controllable guy here and there.
Yeah.
Do something. Like I think they're going to lean more towards the trading off pieces again at this year's trade deadline, like a Kenley Jansen. Maybe Chris Martin's the guy that goes because they have decent veteran or rather bullpen options. I don't know. I got a bad feeling that this team is playing like this right now, all for nothing, and it pisses me off because again, it's been a more enjoyable team than we've seen in the past. But I don't know if the front office feels the same way about it, and I just don't know if they're going to buy in like maybe a lot of fans want to buy in, and that's kind of where I'm at. Why I'm not really doing so. Like this has been fun these last couple of weeks, but until I'm proven otherwise, I just feel like this is another year of you get your hopes up for a couple of pieces here and there to help this team out, and maybe make some of these guys better. Maybe you get a veteran guy in here to teach some of these young guys, but until I see it, I don't know how I can get too hyped up. I feel like you might. I know I've talked a lot here and haven't given you a chance to share your thoughts.
Fine.
But you feel probably the same way, I'd have to assume.
No, like I feel like this has been pretty special like lately, but like I think no matter what you expected this Red Sox team, we were gonna see stretches like this here and there, like one or two
absolutely.
even. Like they don't even have to be like super plentiful. And yeah, it does make you wonder like what if they invested a little more. I think that's totally fair. To like if I had to size it up right now and give an early prediction, I think this team's going to be around the same, little worse record wise, like in terms of like games over 500. By the time the trade deadline hops around, it just is what it is. I don't want to be negative or anything. It's just, that's how I feel
100%.
realistically. Things can change if Cautious, Abreu are back. Liam Hendricks comes back probably closer to August. I feel like, if anything. And that's a spark. Tristan Cautious, I don't know how close he is, but like he could be a huge thing. Like if they can keep this going, that's when things get different. But like I just don't know how much either any of these guys make a difference, and that's not anything on him. I just think that's what the team is. Like I don't think they're capable of making noise in the playoffs. I do think they're capable of stretches like this every once in a while, which is nice given what we have to work with thanks to the front office.
Yeah, absolutely.
But right now, like you got the names listed here. Kenley Jansen will be gone. I think Chris Martin might be gone too because I think teams will be interested in him a lot. Depending on the team. Nick Pivetta, if some team loses a starter to an injury or just really likes Pivetta, he's an expiring contract too. And Tyler O'Neill, like I could see the Celtics, the team that matters more, even though it's the offseason. I could see the Red Sox wanting to invest in Tyler O'Neill a little bit, even at least for like a couple more years after this year.
I'm the opposite on him.
But teams are going to want that power bat, and I think if they get what is somewhat ideal to them, even a little bit, the Red Sox will move him. But I do think there's a chance where like they like the fit and they like the player and they try and keep a guy like him around power bat. The guy's a fucking moose out there. But yeah, that's another guy in the same breath. Like teams are gonna want that power bat, and they're not gonna know this. I almost said Celtics again. Fucking Red Sox are gonna be willing to sell some pieces off. So yeah, it's just they're victims of circumstance.
It's a good way to put it. It really is. Like, and I agree with you. If I had to lean what direction they will go in at the trade deadline, I am with you. And again, it all depends too, is if they completely falter and they're 5+ games out of it, double-digit games out of it, which I don't see that being the case because I'm with you. I think this is the brand of baseball they're going to play. They're going to be right around 500 and, right around a couple of games out of the wild card spot because no one has really taken off in the American League outside of, the big couple of teams like the Yankees, the Guardians, teams like that are, going to win the divisions. But if they fall out of it, then like you have to be smart. You have to move on from Jansen. You mentioned it. They have Hendricks, who is I think supposed to pitch this year. So he comes back. If he comes back, you have a closer that can replace Jansen, no problem. I'm sure there might be a little bit of a problem because the guy's coming off of an elbow injury and surgery, so there won't be a seamless transition. But you know what I mean. It's a guy that's been there, has done that, can fill in Jansen's role pretty fine. Martin, same thing. I'm with you. He probably goes because you can move relievers, and everybody gearing up for a playoff run is going to want relief pitching. Tyler O'Neill, like I don't disagree with you that I wouldn't hate investing a couple years in him because he's been good. He seems like he's been a good fit here. But on the flip side of that, like the Red Sox have been so good these last couple of years of finding guys exactly like him, that right-handed power bat on a 1-year deal,
Right.
like the Renfros, yeah, and your trade stuff like
Can I
that
say
too.
this
So,
too? If you're gonna trade people, can you get pitchers?
yeah, you gotta get something
You get
back.
pitchers like they don't even have to be awesome. Like, can we just
Mhm.
get pitchers that like we might be able to be excited about in like a year and a half or 2 years?
I wouldn't hate it,
Like just
but
something.
yeah. Well, the draft's coming up, but I saw today that the Red Sox have projected to take another second baseman in the draft. Although this kid has like massive power and was batting like 381 in college last year, so not the worst prospect, but it again just feeds into that argument of like how many years are you going to draft second baseman and shortstops with your first overall pick? But that's where we're at with the Red Sox. Like again, they're playing good baseball. I can't knock them too much for what they've done because I mean you see the Phillies and the Yankees on the schedule, you think that's 5 or 6 losses automatically right there with the way those teams have been playing this year. And the Red Sox held their own, so it was very impressive. They played again a really good brand of baseball. Um, but and like you said, until the front office buys in of what they're doing, like I don't think anything's going to change with this team. And again, I think if they have every reason to sell off pieces or they think they do, they're going to do that, and they're going to just try to, you know, protect the asset that they see the Red Sox as instead of the team that they are. So it's frustrating, but again, that's where you're at with the Red Sox at this point.
Yep. That's it. We're pretty aligned on this.
Mm-hmm. We have been for a while. There really hasn't been any sort
Yeah.
of argument when it comes to the Red Sox. So, well, I think
Yeah.
this is how they should operate. You think that's how they should operate. Like, it's
Is
pretty
what it
cut and
is.
dry. Yep,
Handshake. Boom.
absolutely.
I think that's gonna wrap it up. What about you?
I think so.
Good little episode. Covered a decent amount. One of my favorites. I say this a lot, but I have a lot of certain favorites. We'll talk about the draft. It'll be fun. Maybe the Bruins will get a first round pick. That'll be cool. Probably maybe the first episode without Celtics for a while. We'll probably talk about some parade stuff, a little bit of Celtics off
Probably.
season
Yep.
next week. Not as
Especially if you're
much,
gonna, you said
of
you're gonna
course,
be
as the
there,
regular
right?
season.
I'll be driving down
be
the
there.
Cape, so there you go. You have perfect.
Maybe I'll get on a duck boat and we'll be able to talk about it. Maybe
There
me and
you
Cousin
go.
Still will chop it up.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably die if that happened.
From the
That,
security detail that comes and tackles you and puts you down, or for
yeah,
doing that, or just
they just bashed my skull into the pavement.
yeah.
Um,
Happy parade.
yeah, that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a long day. Gonna have to hydrate. Got to be smart. Drink responsibly. If you're going to the parade, I will be. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. I went ahead in the outline because my brain's a little mush, or the
Okay.
outro. My brain's a little mush. Thank you so much for listening, new and old listeners. Spotify, Apple, rate and review. Listen there. YouTube, Twitch, Podbean, Podchaser. On Twitter at Mike_Cratty, at Ryan_Salvaggio, and the show at Sound and Cratty Pod. On TikTok, just throw the name of the podcast in the search bar. You should be able to find it. Probably post 1 or 2 draft TikToks, maybe trade related stuff. TikToks leading up to the draft, and plenty as a free agency frenzy on July 1. And the qualifying offer deadline is July 1. Because it's either June 25th or the first Monday after the draft, and the first Monday after the draft actually happens to be July 1. So it's a bigger July 1 in the NHL this year. Gonna be eventful, gonna be fun. Thank you so much for listening. If you're going to the parade, be safe, be smart, wear sunblock. It's gonna be hot as fuck probably. I'm saying that to myself too because I get burnt pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
Stay safe, stay healthy, be nice people, all that good stuff. We'll talk to you next week. Peace out.